Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Today we try out the 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT. Now, what's great about this test drive of the SRT is we actually just got behind the 2013 model just a couple months back. Now, what's wonderful about that, as we've gone into 2014, there are a lot of advancements on this vehicle that we like, and we'll get to those in just a second. But the biggest, of course, is the exterior. Now, what you're going to notice is still SRT Jeep here. You still got the nice styling cues, the lower fascias, some black inserts, things like that. They've taken a few appointments off. And the biggest thing I've noticed is actually dropped the 8 in SRT. They've strictly gone with just the initials. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the new badging kind of insignias they're going with. But overall, you still have got that dramatic prowess that we saw in 2013 with just a few enhancements that you'll like and you'll added appeal. Now for 2014, you're going to notice some drastic differences on the front end of this vehicle. The biggest, of course, is the headlamp assembly and the new LED signature lights that they have incorporated. Also, you're going to notice that the headlamp washers actually now tucked underneath the headlamp and actually will protrude when it's time to spray off. That makes for a cleaner design, and you don't have those kind of little head washers that you've seen before. Now, obviously, what you'll see right here is a nice black insert behind the grille, and what that does is separate this Grand Cherokee from other in the lineup. This is basically SRT saying, look out, this is what we are. Now, down low, of course, you see the dramatic dark fascia down low, and again, a lot of body color everywhere you look, and that's what I love about this vehicle. You got just a hint of chrome and a lot of this black insert that says this is SRT. Now, what I love on this SRT is that you have these nice porthole designs built into the hood. Now, unlike other ones where it's forced ram air, where they're sitting up here and kind of like those muscle cars we've seen, these are kind of sculpted into the hood design where they're less, dramatic, let's say, but they give you nice look on this vehicle. And of course, they're functional. On a lot of vehicles that have these portholes, they're fake, of course. There's not air flowing. On this vehicle, it actually does, and the air kind of filters in there and keeps this engine nice and cool. Now, by the numbers, the vehicle overall measures in at about 191 inches. It has a stretch wheelbase of about 115. Now, what that means, of course, you're going to spread out the bumps, but what I did notice on this vehicle is that it is a sport model. And what that means is the suspension seems to be more tuned for that, and it does offer some type of road harshness when you're hitting the occasional bumps and things like that. Now, by the other numbers, it's just under 6 feet tall and a little bit over 7 feet wide. Now, also, the rear track has been pushed out a little bit further than the front, and that's sitting, of course, on 20-inch Pirelli wheels with a 245. Now, the biggest thing people want to know is what's under the hood, and during our trip off-road and down to the beach, we actually got that numerous times. What's that boy got? What's it got? It's got the Hemi and all things, of course. Now, what this has, of course, is the 6.4-liter V8 Hemi engine. Now, what they've done, of course, is they've tweaked it and they've punched out as much horsepower as they can, around about 470 horses and 465 foot-pounds of torque. Now, what that does is deliver as much spunk off the line that you could possibly put in this vehicle. Now, I'm sure someone down the road can, tweak this out and get a whole bunch more, but that's plenty of power, because what I found during my jaunts is that really what can you do with this vehicle in the normal stretch of life? You can't go down the highway 100 miles an hour, and you can't pass people in 2-lane roads whenever you want. But what it does is it delivers that spunk and that reliability, of course, to get off the line, but most importantly, it adds sport. Now, this engine comes matted with an 8-speed automatic transmission, and what's great is it also, on the interior, comes coupled with the performance pages and that big LCD screen like we saw in the Chrysler 300. Now, what that allows you to do is kind of do your performance numbers and see what this vehicle can do. Now, even better is for 2014 came with a launch control button. Now, what that basically means is you press the button and it turns it into track mode, and then you put your foot on the brake, rev the gas, let go, and it takes off the line real quick and easy. No tire spin, and actually gave us the best numbers we've seen. Now, by the numbers, I was able to get 0 to 60 around 4.5 seconds. First couple times, 4.6, 4.7, things like that, but I finally got it trimmed to 4.5. Now, I'm sure there's people out there that can actually trim that a little bit better. I haven't seen any official numbers from Chrysler, of course, but overall, I think that's great numbers for a vehicle like this, especially being an SUV and putting the sport under the hood. Now, behind the wheel, of course, this is where anyone wants to find themselves. Now, I was criticized last time for spending too much time in here, but really, this is where you're going to want to be. You want to know what this vehicle has to offer inside just as much as it has on the outside. Now, first thing you're going to notice is, like we talked about, is this huge over 8-inch screen like we saw in the Chrysler 300 that, again, has everything touch screen that you need. But the biggest thing is the pages, which is under apps, and you'll find it and you'll search, and it'll be the performance apps that give you all of the pages that you need to know. And this is where you have the bragging rights, where you can literally test this vehicle out, save that performance data, and then when someone gets in the car, you can show them what you did. Of course, another new feature that you'll find is right here in between the front seats, and that's the new gear shifter. Before it was the old traditional, but now they've gone more with electronic kind of tap system that you basically tap the gear that you need. Now, the one problem I did find with it is as you shift the gears, your hand tends to cover the indicator light that tells you what gear you're in. Now, of course, on the dash, you can look there and see what gear you're in, but sometimes your hands are covering that as well. So the one thing I like is a little bit more kind of input from this gear shifter that kind of tells you what gear you're in. You feel a click or you feel a little bit of give, because a lot of times I either skipped, reversed, and went right into neutral, or I actually never got into park and I couldn't turn the vehicle off. So a little bit of refinement there, just so I can feel that muscle that is under the hood. I can relate it right here to the shifter. Now as for the other creature comforts inside this vehicle, they're still kind of what we noticed in 2013. You still got some nice, of course, appointments, that metallic look, the dark leathers, the dark trim, things like that. So I still feel it's the SRT that I've come to love. Again, the biggest difference you're going to notice is on that dash, that over 8-inch screen, like we loved on the Chrysler 300, and of course the dual climate controls, the heated seats, the cooled seats, things like that. Now, other creature comforts, of course, is leg room. How much space do you have? And on this vehicle, it's plentiful. You have about 40 inches up front, and you only lose about an inch in the back, around about 38, 39 inches. Now, just a few more key points to note is on the one thing I failed to mention is the paddle shifters that we've come to expect on this vehicle that you can obviously shift on the fly. I think the vehicle does great on its actual shifting on its own, so I actually stayed away from that because I feel it did better computer-wise than I would ever do trying to manually do it myself. Right here in the middle, I did notice that this is a little bit compromised due to the kind of a DVD CD player that's right here in the center. It actually takes a lot of your center console. There's not a lot of storage. Right here in the center, of course, is your transmission kind of select mode where you can select sport, track, tow, snow, things like that. Now, we wanted to take this vehicle off-road onto the beach, but I found out there's this thing called a permit for about $50 a week or $120 for the year. And for my couple days down there in the Outer Banks, I really thought that was kind of pointless. So we kept this mainly to the urban jungle, the pavement. But I feel that with the wide tires, obviously the four-wheel capability, this has some off-road worthiness, but really this is street worthy, not off-road. Now, what I loved about this vehicle is, again, we took it down to the Outer Banks and actually had a nice weekend trip with it. Now, what I love, of course, is it had pretty good fuel economy. Now, again, this is a huge V8 that's going to have a whopping 470 horses, but it also has an 8-speed automatic transmission. And now what I found is it does have great fuel economy, and it actually has a readout that tells you dynamically how you're driving and what the fuel economy you're getting is. And of course, when we got on the highway and we're cruising around 70 miles per hour, had it set and all that, I found that we're averaging about 17, even sometimes 20 miles per gallon. And on a gas guzzler typically like this, I would expect much less numbers, around 12 miles per gallon, things like that. Now in the city, of course, you're probably going to drop because you're doing that stop and go and all that. And it does have a fuel economy like mode that you can put this vehicle in. Now again, when we're cruising, another thing that we, of course, love is that adaptive cruise control. There's a great sensor on the front of this vehicle that, again, adapts your cruise control for your driving. Basically meaning if there's a vehicle in front of you, like we were, where we're driving for a long period on a 2-lane road, and we want to set that cruise at, let's say, 65 miles per hour. That vehicle in front of us, if it tends to slow up, that vehicle is going to know it and actually keep the spacing and slow up for us. On a 3-hour drive, I rarely had to brake as this vehicle constantly adjusted the speed. And when that vehicle, of course, got out of the way, it sped back up to the cruise control I set. Now, one last feature I loved is when we were cruising at night, and we, of course, had the brights on to, shine ahead. Anytime that vehicle actually censored a car coming up towards us, it actually dim those lights automatically. Now, this is something that's been around forever, but what was great is as that vehicle actually went away, it, of course, reignited the brights, and we went right back to normal driving. Now, at the back of the SRT, of course, this is the last thing people are going to see as you go flying by them. Of course, you got the built-in spoiler that we've talked about and we've seen last year. Now, again, this vehicle has the smart key system that a lot of manufacturers are going to, and that means there's no old traditional key. Everything stays in your pocket, and of course, you unlock the vehicle by simply getting close to it. Now, same thing back here, but back here, you, of course, got the rear hatch assist, which goes up, and it's quite lovely. Now, behind the back seats, there's plenty of cargo space, and what we talked about last year and this model as well is that we have a nice plush kind of carpeted area, and with these kind of metal grooves that kind of keep things in place. And what we always talked about, of course, is this: your items tend to slide back here, and that's one kind of problem that I've noticed. But what I did notice this time is you do have these kind of clips here that can hold bags, hold things out of the way, and keep it from sliding around. Now, of course, if you want to close it, there is the corresponding button that you press right here, and it closes right down. Now diving into the cargo space just a little bit more, you got about 35 cubic feet back here, and it almost more than doubles when you fold down these rear seats. Now what's great about these Jeep Grand Cherokees is that when you do fold the seats down, the headrest automatically fold flat, so they tuck down and you don't have to worry about them. Now what's great, under the rear seat here you have a full-size spare, and well, they've thought of everything. Actually, when you lift this up, how are you going to get the spare out? Well, they've thought of it. They have a little hooks right there, and it holds everything in place. Now we actually found a kind of a snow brush to keep the snow off the front windshield. Don't have to worry about that right now. Now another thing we found in this little niche right here, we actually have a built-in flashlight. Comes out, press it on, and actually shines just fine. Another nifty feature that thought of everything in this vehicle.
Now, one of the best features on this vehicle was the Wi-Fi hotspot. Now, basically what that does is interact with a cellular service, in this case AT&T, and turns the vehicle into one rolling Wi-Fi spot that you can move anywhere you want. Now, basically in Ocracoke, we did not have any service. We did have a little bit of cell phone, but no data. We turned that on, plugged in the passphrase that we needed, and connected our phones. And pretty much at that point, all the data on our phone, the internet, emails, whatever it might be, downloaded and worked perfectly while we're in the vehicle. So that's an excellent service, something you have to pay extra for, either by the month or by the week or whatever you possibly need. But it's an excellent opportunity to turn that vehicle into one huge internet data junction.
Now this does it for this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. We tried out the 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now what we love is there's a lot of refinements for 2014, and the biggest literally is the LCD screen that is front and center on the dash. It gives you all the information that you need, performance, XM radio, anything you need is right there at the touch of a button. Now again, we love the fine refinements that they've done. They've added a little bit of enhancements there, a little bit of exterior stylings, but overall it's holding true to the SRT statement, which is bold, under the hood power, and refinement on the inside. Now again, I'd like to thank you for watching. As always, keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.